Hi there, and welcome to today's conversation that will definitely make you think, but will also fill your cup. So, today we have Devon Kerns with us, who is a leadership coach, an entrepreneur, and an advisor with over 25 years of experience helping founders and leaders create businesses with purpose. But we do not talk about business here. There is the underlying theme of a little bit of entrepreneurship, but we talk more about leadership from a perspective of leading yourself. And we explore what it means to lead your life with clarity, purpose, trust, and courage. And how can we really shift from feeling flow into and charge the way we work and feel in control and be less maybe in the victim mode and be fully connected to our inner wisdom, our bodies. It is a wonderful conversation that really takes on a life of its own, and we are just here for the ride. So if you feel like joining us, grab a cuppa, sit down, or take us with you on a walk, and let's get into today's conversation with Devon.
But before we start this beautiful conversation, here is your reminder. Please do hit that subscribe and like and share buttons, because we really do want to get these episodes to as many people as we can, because there are such powerful wisdom in there, so much knowledge. And if you have already subscribed or shared our episodes, thank you so much for your support. We really appreciate it. So quick reminder, hit subscribe, like, and share this episode. But now let's get into this beautiful conversation. And I just want to say one thing. Do listen out for the gold nugget, because this gold nugget we got today was just phenomenal. So listen, enjoy, but now let's get on with this beautiful conversation.
Hi, Devon. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. Welcome to the show. I will start with a bit more gentler energy because I know it's a morning for you. So we will start slowly and gently. So to just ease us into this conversation, can you tell us a little bit more about who you are, what you do? But I always ask these questions with a little caveat to, I'm curious to know why you're on this path. What made you to, was it immediately from childhood that you wanted to be who you are right now, what you do, or was there something that really inspired you? What is the reason that you do what you do? What is it, the thing that gives you the passion and the fire
hmm
to do this thing that you do?
Yeah. Um, that's a pretty loaded question. So I'll start with where I'm at. And where I'm at is after 25 years of entrepreneurship and building companies, um, one of my inherent gifts that I didn't realize early on, but other people seem to recognize it in me, is leadership development, sales, um, speaking, public speaking. And as you fast forward to today, and a lot of growth, a lot of inner work, outer experiences, a lot of life lived, my primary focus that I'm switching into these days is leadership development, but not necessarily within companies that I have. And what do I mean by leadership? Most people, I think, at least in the US, would think leadership in business. But there are a lot of individuals around the world that are being called to lead in many, many different ways, including in spirituality and co-creation of nonprofits, businesses, just becoming a great artist, but being seen before they die as an artist. And watching their life unfold. But most importantly to me is just one individual who is functioning as a leader for themselves, right? Not moving out of victimhood, moving from the world is against me to I am in charge of my world, no matter how unfortunate circumstances may be that I have no control over. And we have companies as well. We've got I mentioned to you before we hit record that I've got my partner Monica and our little daughter were going to be moving out to Costa Rica to work on a sustainable project out there. Monica's whole mission there is called Restoring Eden. So, how are we restoring land to heal the land, but also creating communities built within that land where you don't move to this beautiful jungle and cut it down. You actually build within that place so that people can immerse themselves within this healing aspect of nature. So, and then there's a lot of other projects that we're involved in too, and maybe we'll touch on those. But how did I get here? Um, I would say the biggest catapult was I grew up watching my dad as an entrepreneur in real estate. He was the number one realtor here in Colorado. We always had founders of companies. Even the founder of Remax was over for a barbecue and all those things back in the day. And I watched and kind of probably picked up on some of that juiciness of having your own life that you built. However, I also watched the dark side of that. When the real estate market crashed in the 80s, it really devastated my dad. It devastated everything he thought he was about. And so he ended up, by the time we were 13 years old, after years of unfortunate circumstances, drinking, abuse, and all these other things, I watched him attempt to heal himself, attempt to bring himself back, but he just didn't have the vision, didn't have the hope, and he ended up taking his life when I was 13 years old. And then I lost six other people between the ages of 16, or excuse me, between the ages of 13 and 14. And it really, as you can imagine, was a shock, but also who are you gonna show up as? And I don't know that, it's unfortunate that a 13-year-old gets thrown in that level, but there are many people that do in the world get thrown into that unfortunate circumstance as a youth. And I just kind of ignored the adults around me. We were living in Florida at the time, and I would just go down to the beach and immerse myself in the ocean, and found the healing nature of the ocean and the beach, and sitting at my dad's grave every day, whether it's raining or anything, and just grieving and working and going through my own process. Not, okay, you should be healed by now, go back to school, which is essentially what I was getting from the adults around me, with the exception of my mom, and what a strong human being she was to go through all that as well. And I just chose life. There's a lot of detail behind that, but ultimately, by the time I was 18, I decided I want to go out into the world and serve in some capacity. So I started coaching soccer. I started building a fitness company, essentially, which then led me to building a youth wellness company. And then that kind of kicked off my entrepreneurial path to launching and working with wellness and fitness business for years. And then I've played in art, I've played in all kinds of different areas of entrepreneurship, and lost a lot of it too. I've seen the same crash in my life as my dad did, but having seen where it took him, I chose the opposite path, and self-healing and really doing deep work, including 41 plant medicine, ayahuasca journeys, hundreds of psilocybin journeys. I mean, you name it. So yeah, that's attempting to put it into a long but short story.
And what a story it is. And it is really interesting. And thank you for sharing so openly. It's interesting that there tend to be two types of people that end up on our podcast. Ones that kind of more naturally from early childhood, either through their nature and the surroundings, have been on this path, or people who had a very rude wake-up call, usually burnout, midlife crisis, something happening. And it's interesting, you're somewhere in the middle, that you did have a very rude, very abrupt awakening, but very early on, that you had to deal with, where lots of people who are now on these healing paths and who are spiritual and who we're talking on the podcast and who are bringing so much of this wisdom into this world and renewing our abilities to believe and heal and lead ourselves, as you said it. It often happens in our mid-20s, 30s, 40s, 50s that then we find a reason, something happens. But it's so interesting to hear that, you've had to work on it from early childhood, and it then influenced all the businesses you had. So your entrepreneurial journey was very different to most people like myself who go into the business with, well, I have skills, I will have a business, I will have businesses, rather than it came from the point of serving. So now that you are at this point, I want to look a bit more. You mentioned you have lots of these experiences. When people come to you, do you see similar kind of patterns? Do you see kind of a clumps of people with similar experiences and challenges that will come to you and they will find you for a reason or another that you work with? Can you highlight a little bit about where you see the world kind of being
Yeah.
with the people you meet on your journey and the people that come to you for your guidance?
hmm I'd love to point out, particularly if you've got somewhat of an entrepreneurial um, listening audience, and maybe for yourself too, as you've taken the leap into entrepreneurship. People look at certain circumstances and call it luck, and in many ways it is, because there is something about timing that occurs where when I was young, it seemed like just the right people coming into my life at the right time. And I would notice when that wouldn't happen. And the difference between the two was when I was coming from a place that felt highly risky. I didn't quite know what I was getting myself into. How could you at 18, 19, 20, 25, 31, right? At these benchmarks, there's no way I knew what I was getting myself into, but it was always bigger. It was always thinking bigger, playing bigger, no matter what happened before, even if I thought that was the biggest, I would think and dream bigger. And every time I took the leap into that, what seems to be synchronistic, unexplainable, would come in. And one of those examples is early on at 21 years old. There were people that I just constantly kept meeting that would throw me in front of a room. Hey, here's what we're doing. Come talk to these people. And I didn't have any background. I didn't have any desire to go do that. I wasn't shy from doing it, but I definitely had fear. There was that uniqueness of me risking and other people seeing what I couldn't see about myself and following through with that. So I just encourage people, success and leaping in general is never about comfort, for sure. It's not. And it most definitely has nothing to do with a path of ease internally, inside. The riskier it feels, the more simple it seems to unfold for you if you're following that risk. And so when I look at individuals that I get to work with, whether they are entrepreneurial or not, the common denominator is, for me, and it's something I've had to, when you ask that question, what's the most common occurrence, or what are you seeing the most? It's redundant to a painful experience. I can tell you essentially when somebody reaches out to me exactly where they're at and exactly what's needed and the system that we can walk them through. And it's important for me to recognize that that's not everybody in the world, even though I tend to attract that as I reach thousands of people through my just doings in the world every year. Birds of a feather. There's a frequency between us that is an unexplainable frequency. And so when these people come into my life, they're always at this edge. And that edge has been calling them for quite some time but they don't quite have the willpower to take the leap, or they're caught up in what the world would say you must do from a place of safety and security before taking that leap. And you could just say to somebody, do it, right? That Nike motto, just do it. And that's neat. But what I have found consistently is if we can work on what some might call woo-woo, but we're seeing in quantum physics and science that there is something else to our body other than just this physical form, right? The deeper we go into the atom and find the cork and play with this idea of the double split experiment. If you don't know what that is, go look it up. But everything existing in wave form, and when you focus on it, it collapses into whatever you're experiencing, which is mind-bending. However, when you consider that if I am able to have a body that is connected to what I would call your root chakra, many people, billions of people in the world would, that root chakra energy seems to have this intelligence behind it, connected to the earth, that provides yourself with this overwhelming sensation of safety, security, and a sense that if I take this leap, I'll be provided for. And so there's things that are foundational that we can do internally that can provide that safety for us to take that leap, even though logically it seems pretty scary. And your body can almost take over in terms of the will instead of trying to will the mind to do it. And what I find amazing about that is not only do I feel safe enough to take the leap, but it actually takes these blinders off, because I only know what I know from my journey. And I can't always see what's in my field that wants to come into me, that wants to happen in life. And so if I am feeling safer and safer, I'm no longer needing, and my ego's no longer needing to stay here. It starts to open up those blinders and eventually remove those blinders. Now I can see what's been here the entire time, and it seems a lot less scary to both my body and my ego and my mind.
It's so interesting. There are a few things that you mentioned that kind of in my mind are connecting. One was the luck, the fact that, some people will say, oh, I'm lucky or I'm unlucky. But also what you touched on in the end with the ego and the blinds. And what I'm seeing a lot in my life and on my journey, the more I am opening up my blinds, removing the ego and accepting and allowing things to be truth and be possible, and just letting the energies and the vibration and everything to come and be, the more you then start noticing the people who do have the blindfolds and who are kind of in this little bit of the victimhood. It's like, oh, you're
Mm-hmm.
lucky because, and poor me, I'm deserving of better and I'm not getting it because. And I think that you touched on it with the ego and the blindfolds, because often they still live in this world of the future is predicted on the past.
Yeah.
The future is only what is possible for me in the future is based on my past experiences, what I've already experienced and what results I've already gotten. There is a little margin of error in there. There's a little bit of the luck, as you said, in play, but there's no way I can, and it can be in business, it can be in relationships, it can be in healing, it can be in all sorts of aspects of life. And I'm curious, how do you work with people like this? Do you work with people like this? Because I will say that I am not in the business of changing minds. I am the one, I will choose to work with people who are already open and who want to just go deeper and figure out the practicalities. But there have to be
Mm-hmm.
people who are changing minds, who are changing the beliefs, and people like you who can help people to kind of make the switch from, like, how do we remove these blindfolds?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not in the business of changing anybody because I don't think people change. what my work is today, that has really kind of been the essence of my gift forever, is creating the conditions for somebody to have full permission internally to be exactly who they came here to be. The thing that changes is all the nonsense that's been projected onto them, telling them who they need to be. And it's important for us to not fall into what we've been talking about here as well, which is those subtle levels of victimhood are far more dangerous than those that have actually been a victim of something traumatic. What I mean by subtle is society's bad. Look at what society's created. Look at the things these leaders have done. Sure, I've gotten a chance to spend some time with political leaders, billionaires, you name it. In some ways, I wish there was someone I've encountered that I viewed smart enough to be Dr. Evil with this master plan on a global basis, but I have not encountered that person. What I've encountered is individuals who have a set of belief systems, who happen to apply themselves for whatever reason with fierce tenaciousness, timing, and a great idea or great ideas, and created wealth, which gives them power. And then they have influence, and that influence becomes utilized to mold the things they have power over in the direction that they think is fitting them or what's best. Now, I'm not saying some of these people are great people, but I'm also not saying that they are Dr. Evil. All I'm saying is that if the general public wants to see change in the world, then internally they have to give themselves full permission and create the conditions for them to have full permission to be what is most natural for them, to not need to change themselves or the world in order for that to take place. And whatever bit you build in the world, first do it to fill up your cup. Because if you are empty, but you have this great heart or this deep empathy, like think of handing a child who is incredibly thirsty an empty cup that does absolutely nothing for anyone involved in that situation. When you have enough, you are enough, then you can go serve. And what I find so often is the people who are victims, which we all do on some level. I still do it myself. I have to catch myself often. But what I find is they have been ignoring the true essence of who they are for a very long time. And they know it. You can't lie to yourself. At least most people can't. There are probably sociopaths and narcissists that can. And maybe it's not even lying. The President of the United States is one of the greatest examples of complete delusion. But somehow, in spite of how he does it, whatever he's been talking about seems to unfold in a way that seems nonsense and idiotic in many cases, and it still happens. And while I don't appreciate his method or many of his models or desires, I have to sit back and go, wow, you literally spoke nonsense and it became a reality. Like, that is some special stuff. If that doesn't show you the power of delusion I don't know what does, right? And I don't know where it's going to lead. I'm not a doom and gloom person, but I'm also not an optimist. I'm an idealist. And I think that anybody that wants change and feels called to create change, but they're caught in victimhood, needs that internal dialogue, giving themselves permission to free themselves and act according to what is most natural to you. And the fastest path to finding that is pay attention to the body. In and through your day, if it's one of my shamans said this, and I was like, I've done 10 years of work with you. Why didn't you say this 10 years ago? Like, this is the easiest concept in the world. He goes, if it's tight in the body, not right. If it feels light, it's right. And I went, what? That makes so much, I don't know about sense, but the wisdom of the body, if you're moving fluidly through life, paying attention to where there's resistance, and you move in the direction of non-resistance, life becomes fluid. It doesn't become simple, but you can be at ease even when things are hard. And hard takes on a whole different meaning. It just simply means when I'm moving in the direction where my body feels lighter and feels expansive, you might have risk. You might stimulate that little monkey in the cage, that ego, to which, by the way, I don't believe we get rid of ego. I think we fall in love with that little monkey. And we free it from its cage by following the path of least resistance. And when you can listen to your body, that little monkey's cage starts growing and growing and growing. In personal growth terms, that's your comfort zone, growing and growing and growing. And all of the sudden, you get coherence, like Dr. Joe Dispenza starts talking about, where you've shown the monkey enough times that this leap over here actually has a better dopamine reward than staying in this fear cycle over here. And eventually the monkey learns that I'm free. And now your ego's working with you, as well as your mind and body and soul, to co-create in this thing we call the human experience. So, yeah, I mean, that's a long-winded answer to your question, but it is very consistent when I experience people who are on the edge of just needing permission and they're expecting some outside source to do it for them and that level of safety and security to come into their life. And nobody's going to do it for you.
So this conversation is really fascinating. I just want to sit back and listen to the two of you. But it's also one thing that's coming to my mind when you're speaking is there's this, maybe in the beginning, while you are, you know, that there's something needs to happen to have this, you know, this safety, and but there's this trust that, whether it's trust in yourself or trust in your dream, or you know what it is that you're wanting, is there's almost this element of trust that you need to build in order to hopefully find the flow. Because if you don't trust, whether it's yourself or, you know, colleagues or the environment or whatever it is, if there's no trust, then I'm thinking, and I could be wrong, is then there's really very difficult to make those moves. And I know you talked about the base chakra, but it's also having trust in your body to trust, why am I, you know, sitting hunched like this? Why do I have back pain? Why is this? And to listen to that and trust what you are receiving from your body. But if you don't trust it, then how can you make that move or find the flow and the ease? And like you said, it's not, there can be hard, but it can still have ease. And so what I'm getting to is, how can you help, or how can people start to build that trust? Because trust, okay, if we look globally and, you know, look at what's been going on in the world, how can we trust? And then through what we've taught, you know, the limiting beliefs that we've grown up with, you've got to be this, you should do that, you should be this, you should be that, you're that age, therefore, and you have all these conditions that are put on you through society, through family, through whatever it is. And now you at that edge where something has to change, something has to happen. And it comes down to this trust is, okay, what is my root chakra saying to me? And then it's, can I trust it, or am I going to argue with it and think, no, but because this X, Y, and Z, no, that's not possible. I was sitting too much, or we can make excuses. So I would think that a lot of what you help people with when they're on that edge is to find that trust. And probably the most important is the trust in themselves to move forward, to take that leap, to do something that can start to build or start to step into the flow. Has that weird question, sort of made sense to you?
Yeah, it's not weird at all. Seeking trust or seeking motivation first. I think if that was the path, we'd have a lot more people trusting and motivated. Let's look at, trust is a deeper level to this that I think is inherently important. But let's jump up one frequency from trust, which can, there might be deep, deep reasons and traumatic reasons why I don't trust, right? And I have all those in my way, or I could have those in my way, from why would I leap into entrepreneurship when it took my dad, right? Like those kind of processes. Trust is something, in my not so humble opinion, I've never asked someone to earn, nor have I asked myself to earn it. Trust is inherent because we are delusional in our thinking that when we walk outside, whether you're in your country or our country, and no matter what side of the road you're driving on, there is a painted line on that road that's supposed to keep us from smashing into each other in our cars at tremendous speeds. That's trust. Crossing an intersection and the light turns red, which from my knowledge is universal in comparison to green. So we have a level of trust universally that that person is going to stop so I can walk across the intersection or drive across the intersection. We function from a place of inherent trust. It is the emotional aspect of our life that I think gets in the way, to which old boyfriend, old ex-partner hurt my feelings, she did this to me in the relationship, whatever it is, right? And now I can't go date because I don't trust men, or I don't trust women, or whatever it may be. And it's like, okay, cool. Well, are you driving down the road? Did you walk out your front door today? You do have it. So it's deeper on lots of levels. Let's look at motivation. Most people are under the idea that motivation equals action. Motivation will never equal action. You can't get motivated enough to go do the thing that you're scared to go do. Again, if that worked, a lot of people would be doing it already. You must act. And action equals motivation. Action also can equal at a deeper level trust. I've driven up and down, I've driven on that road enough times to know that I haven't died yet. Right? I have to be in the car actually driving in order for my mind to go, oh, okay, we're safe enough to go do that. So when you look at let's say working out, right? In the U.S., we have crazy people that get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, probably do in the UK as well, to go on a run or to go work out. Now, if you haven't done that for 2 years or maybe ever in your life, but you're determined to do it now, when you commit, that's a huge step. But when you decide, the root meaning of decide, I think the Latin root meaning of decide is to cut off from, which means there is no other option. When you actually decide to do something, and I'm going to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and go for that run before I go to work or before I go work on my business, that alarm goes off. That decision is powerful, but that true point at which you either hit snooze or you roll your happy ass out of bed and put on your clothes isn't motivation. That is full commitment and a decision to cut off from being who I was yesterday and choosing to do this today. That decision only works when I act upon it, which means I put on the clothes, I put on my shoes, and I go outside. And then 20 minutes into that workout, how do I feel? Motivated. If you laid in bed looking for the motivation to put on those shoes and you hadn't really decided that you're going to go do it, you aren't doing it. Right? So trust may be what most people are kind of looking for, but I think that we shouldn't even start there. You should just know that trust is inherent because you're still alive in a world with, I think, 8 billion people, whatever we have now, and you've been driving on roads, walking out your front door, and you're still here. It works. Motivation isn't the thing you're seeking to go do the thing that's scary. Action is required in order to lead to that motivation.
Thank you for that. You've given me a totally different perspective on trust, and I love how you mentioned the roads and that. But you've never driven on the roads in South Africa, so yeah, there's not so much trust. You double check. You are fully in control and double checking, and just because the light is red doesn't mean a car's not gonna just go over it. So,
Yeah,
but no, I get what I get what you're saying. It is like you said. We trust when we leave the house to go to work or shopping or whatever it is. And generally, there's that element of trust on the roads. I'm comparing South Africa to England because England, you tend to know a bit more, and I think in the States as well. So thank you for that. And just digging deeper into trust and explaining that. It's always great to get different perspectives and different ways of looking at things. But one of the things that you mentioned in the beginning was this leadership, and we're not talking about leadership, in business, in business, corporates or anything. Let's talk a little bit about leadership, like you said, for yourself, or if you're an artist and you want to be recognized before you die, instead of your painting selling for millions once you're dead. Be nice to have the millions now, most probably. But whether it's for money or not, but you also said, the leadership in yourself or leadership within spiritual circles or leadership can you maybe dig a little bit more into that? Because we have a lot of guests and listeners who are sole entrepreneurs or are looking to live a different life. And I mean, you alluded to something that you and your partner are doing, moving to Costa Rica and sustainable living. And this is a project that I'm neck deep in, or in sorting out here in South Africa. So it'd be interesting to sort of dig into leadership differently, because when we're at school or university or in jobs, we hear about these leadership roles and be a leader. But if you can break that down into more for the individual, or how you can be a leader without the classic title, it's interesting to look at leadership in a different way than what we are, taught or thought of that's traditional?
My short answer is know thyself and act on it. What I mean by that is, so there's a book. Since I was 18 years old, and I tripped over a book called The 1 Minute Millionaire, written by Jack Canfield. I picked it up at 18 because I was like, oh my God, $1 million in a minute. But it's actually a very potent book about alignment. And it has this beautiful story of this woman going through these deeply hurtful experiences while also explaining a very logical path as well. So the left page is actually written in logic. The right page is written about this woman. And so as you're turning every page, it's logic and story and logic and story. And it's beautiful. But since then, I became, up until I was 31 years old, I was kind of a business book, quantum physics, personal growth junkie. I was on stage, spoke to thousands of people. And at 31 years old, after losing a couple very big companies, I moved to this little farm community here in the States. And I was with a friend of mine, and he's like, you look like you aged 10 years in a year. Come just check out for a while. It was 2008 as well, when the world was getting crushed by the stupidity of leaders, right? In particularly in the U.S. And I was having beer with this good old boy farmer. He was amazing, and he was a multi-millionaire. He's one of the largest farmers in our country, but he's an earth person. And after a few conversations, he pulls me aside and he goes, Devon, what are you trying to sell me? Who are you? He goes, I've talked to you for hours now, and I have no idea who you are because I constantly feel like you're trying to sell me something. And so I was in this like personal growth world where I was trying to educate him from a deep, maybe judgmental place in my brain. He's a farmer. I've been on stages. I've been all over the place, right? And I wasn't thinking that consciously, but who knows, right? And so he really called me out, and I couldn't shake that. It was one of those divine timing moments. And at 31 years old, I realized I'm not picking up another book until I discover the book that wants to come out of me, or the messages that want to come out of me that are mine, not someone else's projected onto me. And still to this day, other than one book called The Gene Keys, which was created by Richard Rudd, it's kind of a blend between human design and the I Ching. And it's in essence the 64 codes that make up human consciousness, laying in our DNA. And everybody comes in with these gifts. It's one of the most powerful things that has unlocked the essence of who I am. So when I say know thyself, don't ingest information that is personal growth information to see if you can find the motivation or the trust or the somebody else's why. I'm also not talking about purpose. Seeking a single purpose in life is one of the most excruciating things you'll ever do, and you may never find it, therefore you're never going to go do anything. I think we all have lots of whys, if you will, lots of reasons that we could get excited about living a passionate life. Using tools to go back to childhood, to see what was the essence of who you were before the world got a hold of you. It could be as simple as talking to your parents, if you have that kind of relationship, to say, what was I drawn to before you and school system got a hold of me? Right? And that never really goes away, but just that conversation may not spark the aha moment, but it creates a thread of what are my natural skill sets? What am I drawn to that I get to act on naturally versus learned behavior skill sets? Leadership looks like this. If I were to ask anyone to draw 2 lines on a piece of paper, and it's a scale from 0 to 10, 0 to 10. What are the 1 to 3 things you're just super passionate about that you're really great at doing, or you think you'd be great at doing even if you haven't yet? For me, it was speaking, leadership, and sales. And sales really just has to do with the speaking thing because clearly, as you can see, I like talking. What are you not great at? What do you suck at? And mine was organization, details, spreadsheets, blah, blah. I mean, I could go on. And this was actually one of my billionaire mentors that sat me down and pointed this out to me. And in society, we tend to have people around us that say, okay, where are you on this scale? And I say, I'm a 6.5, 7 probably at the things that I really feel like I could be great at. I'm a 3 at the things I'm terrible at, a 1 to 3. And most people in society would say, bump up the thing that you're bad at, because if you're more balanced, then you'll be more successful. There couldn't be anything that is a greater lie, especially as you're a solopreneur and as you're this party of one in a business that you have. You think that you need to wear all your hats and you don't have the money or time or resources to go hire anybody else. And so what happens is if I focus all my energy of taking my 3 to a 5, I focused literally all my energy on getting average, becoming average. And with all that energy, I no longer have time to take my 7 to a 10. So my 7 actually drops down to a 5. And now I'm fully living life from a place of mediocrity. Right? Instead, focus 98% of your energy on getting that 7 to a 10. Because if you're a 9 at something in this world, not only will you be considered a leader, but then you'll have enough resources, time, money, and energy to hire the people that are a 8 or 9. Very rarely should anybody call themselves a 10, even though they might be, because you always can be more masterful at something. But I found out when I was hiring a personal assistant, really kind of a blend between executive assistant and personal assistant. I was doing interviews, and I'd gone through this process a few years before. There was a woman who showed up, and she goes, Devon, I don't think you understand. Like, details turn me on. Like a spreadsheet, I could orgasm over a spreadsheet. And I was like, it's real. Like, you're a 9 at spreadsheets. What? Like, they exist. And it changed everything for me. Right? So there is always somebody who loves the thing that you're not great at. Which is why when you exhaust all your energy trying to become a 5, and leadership is not something one should seek from a title perspective. Because what we're really talking about by going to college to become a leader, when I read these books to become a leader, is really, it's kind of a path of management over people. It still has a hierarchical concept to it. Versus if I focus on becoming great at the things that I know I am great at and that light me up, you inherently not only have chose to lead, but others will be considering you to be that. And if we had a world built that way in the Gene Keys, it references it as synarchy versus hierarchy. You might have organizations to accomplish a specific mission, but there's no longer a hierarchical management system. It is everybody functioning as their own version of leader within a structured organization. And so you may have reporting mechanisms, but you don't have hierarchical leadership. And I think we're going to be heading there. I don't know in our lifetime or not, but at some point. And I think it just requires people understanding that management isn't leadership, and more importantly, don't aim for leadership. Just focus on what you're great at. Know thyself and execute that until you become and move yourself from a 7 to a 9. And don't be delusional around the idea that you're already a 9. Because if you were, you probably have everything that you wanted, and you'd probably already be recognized on a global basis for that thing. So we can always strive, and don't beat yourself up either, right? Don't say you're a 4 when you probably are a 7 just to look humble. False humility is yucky.
Thank you for that. That's really interesting, and it's something that I've heard in a similar way before. It's I've heard this, focus on those things that you're not good at to try and get better at them. But like you said, all your energy goes into that. But I love how you say you focus on what you're good at, because there's somebody else who's good at what you're not good at, and it's finding the right people so that you all, as you said, like in a business, you all working at a 7, 8, 9, instead of having those that are struggling with trying to improve their 3 and 4, but their 7, 8, 9 is being ignored. And I love how you're saying that. And I would love business to change the way it is. And like you said, I think things are changing because people are demanding more. They're demanding more recognition of being who they are, their uniqueness and their humanness, but also business just needs to change because people are wanting to be seen in a different way, or to be able to work in a different way. So so hopefully it is in our lifetime. It'd be great if it's in our
I think we're
lifetime.
looking at that. Yeah, and I want to bring in an important data point here. We are in a world that is changing at a pace to which we can't comprehend what's actually happening right now. I work with people who sit on AI ethic boards and have looked at things like the Willow chip from Google and the quantum computing and all these other things. I know a lot of people are afraid of that. I think it's inevitable. I do think we need some guardrails to not control the technology, but to limit people and what they do with the technology. I think if you limit this technology from its capacity, you're only slowing down what could be game changing for our planet in terms of our assisting the planet in terms of healing, assisting people in terms of medical and health issues, right? Like, it can unlock a lot, and it has great potential, and it has great devastating things too. But that's human nature. That's been our journey since the dawning of time. So we need to move out of fear and really start growing as these leaders and focusing on how could even things like technology be used from a perspective of 9 and 10. And I bring this up for one reason, because what you said within that, I can assure you, more than any business you're doing, more than anything else you're creating, we are transitioning into a world where doing is not your value anymore. What you do isn't your value anymore. Who you be while you do is what's going to be the revolution that we probably most need on this planet. We directly relate what I'm doing, what my title is, how much money I have from my doing to our worth. And knowing that technology rapidly is going to replace 98% of you in your doing, maybe that's not the most important thing. Maybe that's not why you came here at this point in time on the planet. Maybe who you be, in order to be that at the fullest extent, to then co-lead with technology to create a more sustainable, more beautiful, more cohesive, more a world in more harmony, a world that feeds all the children. Like, these things are possible. They're possible today without the technology. And so I cannot stress enough The how and the what are going to be irrelevant in comparison to your why and who is doing it. And spend time figuring out who you are beyond what you do. 1000%. From that place, become curious. Curiosity is going to be those that win. Because if I can ask the clearest, most precise questions and ask a technology that can access infinite amount of information, those questions, and power isn't always grand question. It could be the simplest question with all of that aggregated information put together in a synapses that has to do with who you are and how you show up in the world. It could unlock everything for you. Curiosity is going to be the path that will lead to the new leadership and the new world, and those that get the most curious from an aligned place, asking the technology that has infinite resources and infinite access, what are we co-creating? It's game on.
And that is so powerful, and thank you for sharing that. And it is something that we often talk about on here, is, you know, how unique each individual is, and that humanness that is, you know, we three people sitting on this call at the moment, and each one of us is totally individual and unique to each other and to everybody. And I love how you really sort of integrated almost the human and the technology, and how we can look into that. So thank you so much for that. So this is the part in our episode that we call the gold nugget. Devon, may we please have your gold nugget?
There are so many. If I were to take all of this and understand that if you're receiving this, and whether you've heard this before, which you probably have on some level, whether you have a deep, heartfelt knowing, even if you haven't heard this, something is registering and going, I feel that. Sometimes all of this information in the course of an hour can be overwhelming. Because again, we think in terms of, oh, I got to do that. Oh, I got to do that. After working with people all around the world, and I mean literally thousands of people, if you did nothing else but begin to understand what I mean when I say get into your body. Practices like grounding, practices like understanding and building a relationship with the root chakra. I don't care what your background is. I don't care what religion you are. Whatever path that feels most aligned to you, and however you want to call it. There is a wisdom within the body that when we attune ourselves to it, and the deeper we are in a level of awareness of our body, the clearer life will become to you in every now moment. When we look at the womb, the sperm and the egg collide, and there's an explosion that takes place into life. And as that cell duplicates and replicates, there is a wisdom within that. Something is happening within the container of the mother that is deeper than her thinking and willing that baby into existence. And here's where it gets crazy. As that wisdom creates life, we honor the brain so much in society. We think this is it. I can tell you the frontier is not the brain. The frontier is the heart brain. What do you mean by heart brain, Devon? Well, first and foremost, all the synapses that we have up here, this has that many and more. What are synapses? Synapses, in my not so humble opinion again, and we're starting to see this in science as well, means an electrical firing like an antenna that is pulling information from somewhere. Well, memory is stored in the brain. I don't think so. Because there was no brain. When you go in and you take that tool, that technology, and you place that tool to listen for a heartbeat, you're not listening for brain activity, you're listening for heartbeat. And the reason you're not listening for brain activity is because it's not there. It's not developed. The heart was. And the question I have to ask, and I've asked scientists, I've asked all kinds of people, is what told that heart to beat? Because it's not the brain. It's not there. There is a wisdom that comes from the body that when I can feel safe enough to listen to it, this receives information not from the same processor. It is a very clear and precise wisdom that when you can feel it before your brain gets a hold of it, and you can move and act according to that wisdom before the brain kicks in, life fundamentally changes. But that is very scary to a human that hasn't grounded themselves into their body. You talked about trust. It is very hard to trust that nanosecond knowing in a present moment unless my body has replaced all of that nervous system. Your operating system has been overridden by a level of rooted and grounded and presence. So in order to listen to the wisdom of the heart chakra, and if you want to discover more information about this, look at the Heart Math Institute, because they have done study after study after study around the wisdom of the heart. And from that place, in order to know it, trust it, hear it, first ground, first root. If you spent nothing but the next year doing that, the next 20 years will be so fundamentally different that your bell curve in terms of success, in terms of leadership, in terms of everything that we've talked about will be so different because you are functioning from the intelligence of the body in alignment with ego and mind. That coherence changes everything.
Thank you so much. And this is why we really love our gold nuggets. And I agree with do for our listeners, look up the Heart Math Institute because they have so much information. I'm really fascinated by the heart and the heart brain, so to speak, because it's so much more. And I love how you've really dug into it and from the sperm and the egg. So thank you so much. You've given us so many gold nuggets, but this has been a real juicy, beautiful, golden, glowing, shiny gold nugget. Thank you so much for that. Now, if our listeners are really wanting to find out more, to get into your circle, to connect with you, to learn more about what it is that you're doing, or just want to have a little bit of Devon, where can people find you?
Yeah. Devon, Devonk, which is my middle name, starts with a K, and then Kerns, Kerns. So devonkkerns.com. And it's structured exactly that. You can reach out immediately if you so choose. If you scroll down, you can get an overall experience of some of the things I'm doing working with people. But at the very bottom, there are other podcasts, and yours will go up there as well. Just below that, I've been playing with the input of all of my experiences from 41 ayahuasca journeys to all the hundreds of psilocybin journeys and all the downloads and all the transmissions and all my work and all my sessions have been aggregated into AI, spit out in story form, and then converted into lyrics. And I've created an album in partnership with AI that is music positioned to get you to return and remember who you are at the most natural state. And it's fun music. It's music that'll move your body. It's on every platform from Spotify to iTunes to you name it, right? It's out there. So if you go there, I've got direct links so that you can listen to that. There's a whole DJ set that I did at the bottom that'll move you from meditation into movement, integration into the body, and dropping you out of the ethereal realm back into the body is the intention of that music. And so if you want a little taste of me, there is everything within that. That is the essence of what I know for every listener that you have, that will unlock you if you just play with it, listen to it, and move your body. So yeah, you don't even need to reach out to me. Just go to the music. But if you want to reach out, I'm always here. I love talking to you.
Yes, and we will add the link that you've provided down in the description below so people can click. And I'm excited to go and head to the playlist and, listen to some of the music. You really sold me on it now. I'm like so excited to go in and listen. So thank you so much for being here today, for giving us really generously your time and space. Really appreciate you spending our morning with us today.
Thank you for having me. This was so much fun.
And for our listeners, I'm curious, what was your one key takeaway from today's conversation? What was it that really made you stop and think and then you're taking away? Or is there something that, you know, you wish we have asked? Because obviously there's so many more questions we could have asked and so many more topics we could have covered. If there's anything that you would love to know more about, reach out to us, reach out to Devon. And until next time, that's it. Thank you so much. Goodbye.